Okay. Hi, Cynthia. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. And yourself?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. So, you're promoting a book right now. And the book is called On a Wing and Tear or Tear.
Both, actually.
Okay. I wasn't sure which way to go with that one. Before we get to your book, though, I just want to talk about you generally. You've
Sure.
got quite a few books I see on here. How many books do you have published at this point?
I haven't counted lately. I think we're over 20 at this point, and it's a mixed bag. They're books for young readers at all different age levels, picture books, middle grade, young adults. So it's a mixed bag.
Okay, but you write primarily for younger audiences.
Yes, I do. I mean, I write essays and some poetry for grown-ups, but kids are really where my heart is at.
Also says that you are a citizen of the Muscogee Nation. Is that true?
Yes, I'm an enrolled citizen of Muscogee Nation. It is, I believe, the fourth largest tribal nation within the United States in terms of population. So it's
Oh,
one of the bigger tribes. And we're located within the boundaries of Oklahoma.
I was trying to think where. So Oklahoma is Cherokee, right?
There are actually a number of tribal nations
Okay.
in Oklahoma. Originally, it was designated as Indian Territory, and the Muskogee, along with the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole, were forcibly removed up there as Indian Territory, and then it became the state of Oklahoma.
Do we use the term reservation anymore, or is that politically incorrect?
No, we say reservation. Actually, well, we usually say res.
Oh, okay. So do all your books have a Native American theme to them? I mean, is that what they're about, or?
Not necessarily. I published two young adult sort of spooky stories, gothic fantasies series. So that's a total of 9 books. I did a tall tale about a kid who was just really loud, and I published one Santa Claus picture book. But for this book, On a Wing and a Tear, and for some of my more recent titles, I have been leaning into cultural representation a little bit, and I think that that is partly because the industry is more welcoming of those stories than it was for a long time, and also because I just have stories to tell, right? I've got a million cousins that are in all of my business. My grandparents were a huge part of my life, my aunties and uncles, and I love just seeing people like them portrayed as heroes of their own life stories.
Okay. How did you get your start writing?
Well, my mother would tell you that I've been writing since second grade. I had a poem that was read over the intercom. I didn't get any audio rights or compensation for this, but it was the principal and he had the power in the situation. So I just took my bows and went on. But I did go to journalism school at the University of Kansas and then law school at the University of Michigan. And really, I only have 3 skills. I can read, I can write, I can talk. I only learned how to cook within the last few years. And even then, it's a little sketchy. Driving, I'm pretty much a danger to myself and others. So I'm one of those people who thought, hey, I love language, I love the world of books, and I'm going to make it my own.
Did you start out searching for a publisher, or did you self-publish, or how did you get your foot in the door?
I was published from the start by Rosemary Brosnan, with whom I co-founded the Heartdrum imprint at Harper Children's. And that was with what you would consider one of the major trade houses that are based in New York City. And then they also, have affiliates around the world. So I'm published in a few different languages, but it's primarily the US, the UK, and Australia and New Zealand.
Because we get a lot of authors on here who are sort of first-time unknown authors, and people are always wondering how you get your foot in the door. And it's never the same story twice.
No, it really isn't. If you're interested in writing for kids and teens, there is a really welcoming community of established authors who do like to pay it forward. I was really blessed to be taken under wing by essentially folks of my mom's generation when I was first getting started, people like Jane Kurtz and Kathy Oppelt. And we do host, as an industry, as a community, a number of workshops and conferences where you have an opportunity to get your manuscripts workshopped as well as to meet editors and agents. In fact, I coordinate one of those for indigenous writers every summer.
So let's pivot over to your book, On a Wing and a Tear, or On a Wing and Tear, not a.
Yes, it is in fact both. The tear refers to the torn wing of a character named Great Grandfather Bat. The story is centered on two kids who are best friends, Ray Half Moon and Melanie Roberts. They're essentially living as siblings or cousins because Melanie and her mom are renting out the attic in the Half Moon home. Melanie's mom is an adjunct professor, and so I know a little something about that and how underpaid they are. And so they're kind of struggling to make ends meet in this intertribal household. One day the kids are called to their side yard by a talking bat, Great Grandfather Bat of Lore, the great ball player, who, according to Muscogee traditional story, won a famed ball game between the animals and the birds by flying high and catching a ball in his teeth. So they have some cultural awareness of this, but it's still, these are very modern contemporary kids. You know, they go to Cubs games, they shop at Target. They are very much children of the now. They take the bat inside, ready to somehow explain to their grandfather that this wounded bat has asked a favor of them, thinking they're not sure how this is gonna go, only to find out that Grandpa Half Moon and Bat are old friends. They go way back, they've got a wonderful relationship, and so our heroes load up for a road trip and pick up with a little feisty gray squirrel, and they take kind of a long route, the scenic route, stopping to visit family and friends between the city of Chicago and the Ocmulgee Mounds outside of Macon, Georgia, the Ocmulgee Mounds being the birthplace of Muscogee Nation. So the kids have some tears themselves. Ray is missing his dad who's passed away. Mel is a child of a recent divorce, and they heal as Bat heals along the journey. In the midst of some humor and some hijinks and some ambitious vloggers wanting to capture a talking animal on video, and a somewhat mysterious creature we call Este Jepko, who you might be familiar with as Bigfoot.
So what's the takeaway on the book? What's the message that you hope the kids get after reading this one?
I would say that specific to the characters, it's that your loved ones, your people in your community are always with you, that the ancestors are with you, they're rooting for you, they're cheering for you, and that you have a past, yes, that's important, but you also have a present and a future, and the opportunity to reinvite old friends and family members, perhaps spirits, and to move on with some confidence, because you're never fully alone. You're always carrying your loved ones in your heart.
I want to hit one of your talking points on your bio here, and I'm just going to read it and then have you comment on it.
Okay.
It says, much of your work focuses on contemporary Native American characters and communities. What about contemporary life in Native American communities do you want audiences to know?
The most basic point is simply that we are still here, that we are vibrant tribal nations and individuals who are making meaningful contributions to not only our communities, but also more broadly, that for young readers who are indigenous themselves, that they belong in the world of books, that they can become confident readers and know that people like them are as valued as heroes as anyone else. And for kids coming from the outside into the storytelling circle, that they just gain a more grounded understanding. You know, so much of the sort of stereotypical or old Hollywood mythology about Native people is very narrow. It doesn't look at diversity within, it doesn't look at modern life. It paints a picture of a kind of misty, extinct way of existence. And really, the Native population is growing. We're having a reclamation of language revitalization. You know, my grandparents' generation was part of that experience wherein children were raised in Indian boarding schools and didn't have the opportunity to speak their languages or practice their faith. And now today we're seeing kids come back to that. And it's really kind of wonderful to see littles, very, very young children with the eldest of the elders, because oftentimes they're the most fluent of speakers. And the rest of us in between, we feel like they're keeping secrets and, up to shenanigans that we don't know about.
Do you think Native Americans are underrepresented in our sort of pop culture or not? Or is it getting better?
It is getting better, but we still have a ways to go. I am encouraged by the achievements of television shows like Reservation Dogs was a really positive step forward. That was filmed on the Muscogee Res, and they have received some solid outside recognition, but there was also just this tremendous sense from the intertribal community that the jokes rang true, that it was really a collection of stories about how we relate to one another. And that's an important point. So much of history is about this versus that. And so much of our society, pits people with opposite talking points against one another, when really much of what happens within Indigenous communities is collaborative. It is interior focused. We're taking care of our elders and raising up our kids and doing our best to solve problems in our community while also looking at what we can do for our neighbors.
Is there any problems that are unique to the reservations that maybe people who aren't a part of it don't see?
A couple of things that might bear noting. The first is that some 80% of Native people don't live on the tribal homelands. They live in urban areas. And there's more than one reason for that. Part of it is federal relocation programs that we're trying to break up the res. Middle of the last century, we're actually busing people out. There was some derecognition of previously federally recognized tribal nations. And in many cases, people are relocating because that's where their university is, that's where their job is, and they traveled back and forth. That's probably actually the most representative experience. In terms of challenges on the res, the one that I have been particularly most involved in the conversation about is the crisis around murdered and missing women, girls, and our two-spirit relatives. Actually, one of my previous books, Harvest House, for young adults, touched on that, and it's sort of a ghost mystery in which student journalists have the opportunity to solve one of these cases and bring to light, how maybe the media has fallen through the cracks in terms of raising awareness and also making it more of a bridge, making themselves a bridge to a wider awareness.
So has your book been released?
It comes out today or tomorrow, depending on when you're watching or listening to this.
Okay, what's the release date?
Tuesday the 17th.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I think on that, we're going to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on this show. It was nice talking to you. Last question, do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, I'm at cynthialeitichsmith.com.
Okay.
Or you can just type in Cynthia Smith in children's literature and it'll pop up.
We'll put it up on the screen so people know how to spell it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on. Again, nice meeting you and nice chatting with you. Best of luck with the book. Hope it does well.
Thanks so much. You take care.